Hello, welcome to the Loney Show. I'm your host, John Milone, and in this episode, I have brought on regular Eric Taylor. And as broadcast, he is from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, but currently residing somewhere outside of Pennsylvania. I mean, Philadelphia. Well, I don't know why I said that. But he he's a writer, performer, teacher, and leader of the Little Wretches. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Robert Andrew Wagner.
Dun, da, da, da. Hello.
How are
Hello.
you doing, Mr. How you doing, Mr. Wagner?
I'm doing pretty well. Usually people who call me Mr. Wagner are, carrying textbooks and asking about their grades. You can call me Robert, but, if you insist on calling me Mr. Wagner, I'm comfortable with that.
All right, Robert.
So,
All
how's
right.
life?
Well, life is great. Geez. Where I am, we have a strong winds. We had a coating of snow fall about an hour ago, but then it all melted off almost as soon as it fell. A great time of year, be kind of waiting for spring to break, and every day's a new day.
Yep, same here. There's been a very, very strong wind in my area, especially in all of Scotland, and also a bit of light snowfall, but all of that just evaporated immediately. But yeah,
Yeah,
weather,
yeah.
yeah, it's
Oh, I'm
crazy.
sorry.
No, that's
Yeah,
fine. Go on.
yeah. Same here. It was snowing for like 10 minutes, then it stopped. But Robert, so tell us what made you want to become a teacher?
Well, people kept on telling me that I'm a teacher, and finally, as a band leader and musician, there's times where you're really busy, and then there's times where it looks like, oh no, maybe I've reached the end of the line. Maybe and then there's these humiliating moments where you have to get a job, and and it seemed like every time, I'm just a natural teacher. I'm comfortable around kids. I'm the kind of person, I don't know, babies stop crying and dogs stop barking when I'm around. I get along with kids, and I understand the process of learning. Actually, I have a master's degree in instruction and learning, but I never really saw myself being a classroom teacher. But I work with at-risk kids, and the way that happened, one of my part-time jobs, I was working for Carnegie Museums of Pittsburgh, and most of my colleagues were these little old ladies that would shake their finger at me and say, "You're wasting your life here. You're supposed to be teaching at one of those Dead Poet Society schools." And I don't want to teach a bunch of rich kids. But so, I got a job teaching kids who'd been expelled from school for bringing drugs or weapons to school. And it's kind of stuck. I mean, they give you money to hang out with kids. What a scam. I mean, if you hang around me, you're going to learn something. So, and if they'll give you money, that's a bonus, but I would do it for free.
Well, you see, man, I probably wouldn't see myself being a teacher because I don't know. The only kids I'd want to deal with in life is my own when I have kids. That's just me. That's
No,
just
well,
me.
that's I tell people, well, that my background is in alternative education. In some ways, like when I was a teenager, my family fell apart, and I was for a period what you might consider an abandoned kid. I was living in a house by myself. My mother was gone. My father was gone. I was shoplifting for food. But for some reason, my mother had instilled in me that I'm supposed to get good grades. So I managed to not fall behind, even though I went to school maybe once or twice a week. But or sometimes I would go in, get my name on the absentee list, so that all the teachers would think I was absent, and I would just hang out all day and ask, hey, what did you do in English today? What did you do in social studies today? And then I'd show up for the tests. So I learned how to teach myself, and I learned how to, the power of learning, because there's this old model, this like a factory model where they put the kids on the assembly line, and this teacher puts in the rivet, and that teacher puts on the bolt, and when you're in the fifth grade they do this, when you're in the seventh. I mean, that's an ancient model that they still they still cling to, and it doesn't work. The student is more important than the teacher. The teacher's there for support. If I'm empowering you to learn how to, I mean, you're a natural born problem solver. You're a natural born critical thinker. You just learn to shut your mind off in school because you're not allowed to think for yourself in school. That my whole thing is just to try to unlock the power that's already there, and maybe show you how to put a capital letter at the beginning of a sentence and a period at the end. But otherwise, we're learning how to live together. We're solving the problems that the human race has faced for as long as we've been on the planet, and nobody's come up with a solution. So, I mean, come on, school, what a scam. Your parents are your first and most important teachers, and kids that have parents are so lucky. Many of the kids that I've worked with in my experience with teaching are kids who've been abandoned by their parents, or their father has 17 kids by 15 different women. It's the they're and that makes, in some ways, that makes my job even easier, because they question authority, they don't trust adults, but they are looking for an adult role model. It's like, okay, that's good. I don't need you. I'll earn your trust, and like I said, if you're around me, you're going to learn something. And I respect. I usually don't have too hard of a time just establishing a rapport with kids, because there's a lot of things that just go unsaid. If you're angry about something, you don't need to explain it to me. You don't have to apologize for it. If you're angry, you're angry. If there's a problem, I'll help you solve it. That's all.
Great.
Wow.
Impressive.
Yeah, great. Yeah, especially I was especially impressed by the part where you said you were able to teach yourself, and you went to school like twice a week and still not was able to fall behind. I was really impressed when you said that.
Well,
That's impressive.
I mean, look, they teach you when you're in the school of education. They tell you that a lot of teachers, they quit in the first 3 years because they don't. It's not what they expected it to be, and somewhere early on, I learned that teachers spend about a third of their time on clerical tasks, about a third of their time on behavior, and then about a third of their time actually teaching. So I would go in with the idea of, well, if you're only going to teach me a third of the time, then I'm only going to show up a third of the time. How about that? It's school's more about socialization. I mean, come on. I'm going to get up and sit down on a bell schedule. I'm going to be quiet. In real life, I mean, look, I'm an American. I'm all about the Bill of Rights. One of the things in the First Amendment in the States is the right, freedom of assembly. I get to choose who I associate with. In your traditional classroom, you don't even get to pick the other kids in your class. They tell you who to be with. What if I hate everybody in my classroom and you're going to force me to sit in there with them all day? That's not even right. In real life, if you don't like your job, you go get another job. If you don't like where you live, you go live somewhere else. You're allowed to solve your own problems. In schools, where they're supposed to be teaching you problem solving, they solve all your problems for you and make you miserable. So
that's true. That is so true.
Yeah.
That's real. That is some real stuff right there that you just said right there. They just solve your problems for
you. Yeah, and then wonder when you're an adult, and they've beaten your problem solving ability out of you. I don't know how it is over there in the United Kingdom, but I know here in the States, I've read that we keep our young people in the state of dependence longer than anywhere else in the world. You got people who are 28 years old still living in their mother's basement. Whereas generations earlier, like my dad was a homeowner with a family by the time he was 28.
Wow. Impressive. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's just impressive. I'm speechless.
So, I guess you guys picked up on the teacher thing. But like I said, I'm more about learning than instructing. I for my little bizarre way of looking at things, I'm a facilitator of learning. I can affect the environment that people are in, I can ask questions, or I can invite people to ask questions and explore and try to find answers and just kind of have fun. If I have fun, then that's a sign to me that I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And even with music, I think of myself as a teacher. I teach through stories. I mean, that's the other thing about the human brain is we're hardwired to look at things symbolically and metaphorically. I teach through stories, and I tell stories through songs. My favorite thing, when I'm with kids is, okay, everybody take a turn, everybody pick a song. Okay, okay, you're not allowed to be disrespectful to his song. You're not allowed, if you want people to listen to your song, you got to be respectful. Just let's use music as a communal thing to bring us closer together and understand each other a little bit. And it's a fun thing, and I usually hook my laptop up to a projector, so we're watching videos while we're listening to music, and having a little discussion, a little commentary along the way. It's weird now in the digital age, because everybody's walking around with earbuds stuck in their ears. When I harken back to the days when people had boom boxes and music was a social thing. We're all together listening to the same music, not each of us in his or her own little private universe.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's true, man. Because I be walking around with my headphones in all the time, bros. Because I don't know, it's like I feel like most of the people around me wouldn't even want to listen to the music. I wouldn't want to hear the music I hear anyways. So it's like,
Yeah, I know that feeling. Well, I took a bunch of kids. At one point I was working. I had a house. It was called Martin Luther King Hall, and I had 14, juvenile delinquent boys. They were really nice kids, but they'd been in trouble with the law, and their records were really bad. So there was no way they were ever going to be accepted into group homes. They were basically going to be, in the equivalent of an orphanage until they turned 18, and so there was a church that was having like a youth night where they were having a bunch of bands, and I knew that the kids, they like to listen to music as a way to like calm themselves, so they all had little MP3 players, or some kind of thing and I take them to this concert, and they're all sitting off in each in his own little corner listening to his headphones instead of mixing with the kids at the concert. And then one kid, they used to call me Mr. Bob. One kid actually had the nerve to talk to girls, and they're all looking at me. You mean we're allowed to talk to girls? Says, yes, there is a God. Yes, please go talk to girls. Be a kid, have some fun. Don't get climb out of your cocoon and experience the world here. Yeah. So yeah, but it's funny how easy it is for kids to crawl back into their own little universe. Or now, I was at a holiday event in a town called Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, last summer, and it was mainly kids were there because their parents were there, and of course I was there with the parents. And there's all the kids sitting on the porch, just sitting there with their phones and their headphones. They're not even talking to each other. Like, oh, what's wrong with this picture? But that's they're choosing that. If that's I'm glad I didn't grow up under those circumstances. That's all I can say.
Well, kids these days and their technology.
Oh yeah, kids and their technology.
Yeah, I remember back in the old days. Yeah, I remember back in the old days where we used to have to play with toys. Shoot,
Yeah,
man. Now, I see 8 year
you
olds.
guys, you guys ever hear of a guy, a musician, Jonathan Richman and the Modern Lovers? You familiar with them at all?
Maybe.
Okay. Well,
Maybe.
they're kind of like a seminal punk band. They were kind of pre-punk, heavily influenced by the Velvet Underground. Jonathan Richman's and at a certain point, he went almost like into children's music. And I read a quote by him, and his philosophy for performing is, our toys are broken and it's raining outside. Like, okay, so we have to figure out how to play with nothing. We have to figure out how to have fun with nothing. And, the first time I saw him live, it was kind of like, okay, that was an eye-opening experience. He's here to make something happen. Make something exciting happen with the people that are here, with the musical instruments that are here. We're just not going to go through the motions. We're going to snap out of this status quo that we're in and experience something new and fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what's
So any
your
more
story?
questions?
Who am I talking to here? I need to get a sense of who I'm talking to here. What's going on?
So I am John Malone. I'm like the host, and then somewhere between you, me, or whoever is Eric Taylor, which is or somewhere I don't know. To me, he's in the middle.
He's in the middle somewhere. So
Yeah,
so
I'd say
what's
I'm in the
our
middle.
mission? What's our mission here? Are we or do we have something that we're trying to accomplish, or are we just shooting the breeze?
We just go with the flow and express our origins and stories and what we do for a
Okay.
living.
Yeah,
Okay.
pretty much. Yeah, well, so we could just say we're shooting the breeze,
Okay.
So what
Well,
was like? So what's life for you growing up?
where it's a pretty deep story. It depends on how far back you want to go. On my mother's side, my grandparents were immigrants from what's now the Slovak Republic. They came to the States. My grandfather came over here to America with the idea that he was going to be an entrepreneur. He was going to open a gas station or something like that. And when my grandmother came over when she was 17 years old, she thought she'd been sent to the United States to go to college, but it was really for an arranged marriage. She didn't, she was met at the train station by my grandfather, and I guess he told her, you don't speak English, you don't have any money, and you're not that good looking. You don't have to come with me, but you could do worse. So she went with him. But my grandmother might have been the smartest person I've ever met. She had the mind of an engineer. She could have been a philosopher, and but she in fact she worked in the steel mills. I'm from Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's known for the steel industry. She was the first female crane operator in the history of United States Steel. But she basically had nothing and nobody, and except for her kids. And my mother, now again, my grandmother valued education. My mother likewise was a brilliant person. She should have been a doctor, but she was a nurse, because in her generation, that's what women did. Men were doctors, women were nurses. But they instilled in me that sense that you're supposed to do something with your life. You're supposed to try to accomplish something, make some impact on the world. And so when I grew up, I thought my dad was the strongest man in the world. I thought my mom was the most beautiful woman in the world. I was really gullible. Anything my cousin said, I believed was true. My cousin said that the Beatles were the best band and they wrote their own songs. So immediately I had to figure out how to write my own songs, because if the Beatles were the best band, I wanted to be like the Beatles. And then when I was a teenager, the whole thing fell apart. There was a lot of violence. My father uh, was told by the police that if he came around anymore, that they were going to arrest him. And my mother went into hiding. She sent my sister to live with my uncle. She took my little brother with her, and there I was in the house I grew up in with no father and no mother. I eventually trashed the whole house. I used to sleep on the floor in front of the TV. I had a little path to the refrigerator, a little path to the bathroom. Uh, I heard later that the teachers at school used to joke that I lived in a doghouse, because apparently, I never washed my clothes and wasn't big on hygiene. Um, and then, I don't know, man. I got lucky, because I guess I was smart. I was good at school, even going to college. When I was a senior in high school and all the kids are going around, what university you're going to go to? So I'm not going to any university. And it was my friends that kind of looked at me like, no, 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 you're going to college. And somebody pulled an application to the University of Pittsburgh out of the trash and insisted that I fill it out and send it in. And, ended up getting accepted to the University of Pittsburgh. And, uh, oh man, I mean, I, I, I've just had some crazy things happened to me that I did. I didn't do anything clever or anything smart. Things just worked in my favor. Providence smiled on me, you know.
Oh,
Hmm.
great.
Yeah. Would you consider yourself a very lucky person?
Well, I don't believe in luck particularly, but if I did, yeah, how could you be much luckier? I mean, there are other people who went through similar circumstances, like my best friend. You know, when I stopped going to school, you know, every day after school, we used to get together for some kind of ball game. All the kids from the bus, we'd run home, throw our books, and then run out. There's a little street that we would all go to you know play football or baseball or just hang out. And my buddy says to me one day, I didn't go to school today. I look at him, well, I didn't go either. He says, well, I'm not going tomorrow. Well, I'm not going tomorrow either. It's like, well, then let's not go together, you know. And we used to, instead of going to school, we'd go into the city and play pinball and go to arcades and just kind of hang out, and then come home at dismissal time as if we'd gone to school. Um, and he ended up getting, you know, the truancy officer caught up with him. He ended up being put in a residential program, got jumped by a bunch of kids. They broke his nose and broke his leg, and you know, nothing like that ever happened to me. You know, here I went on to go to college, get a degree, have a career in music, kind of be respected a little bit as a writer. Uh, you know, things could have gone much different for me.
Hmm. Okay. Okay.
You know, like my dad. I mentioned that there was a little bit of violence in it. At one point, my mom had to go into hiding because she and my dad split up, and he wanted nothing more than to reconcile with her, but he drank, so he'd come up to the house drunk, sometimes with a gun, sometimes with a knife, sometimes with a strap that he was going to strangle her with, and my job was to fight him off and keep him from getting to my mom. And there were people who told me my dad was the toughest guy they ever met, but when they're drinking, they're really not that tough. So, but I mean, it's like, man, looking back on it now, like, I could have been killed. I could have been put into a residential program. I could have been put into foster care, and who knows what kind of story I would be telling now. But everything kind of worked out in my favor.
Well, I'm glad to hear
Great.
that, man.
Yeah,
I'm
Love
really
it.
glad to hear that.
Amazing.
yeah.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah, and it's like I said, when I'm working with kids, uh, like I have a kid now. I don't know, you guys might not be familiar with Philadelphia, but there's one of the big things in Philadelphia now is that they've come up with this new, like needle dispensary thing for drug addicts. So instead of having to steal or use dirty needles, either there's certain areas where you can go to and they give you your drugs and they give you your needles for free. Or there's a neighborhood down in Philly called Kensington where, I mean, you go down there and it's like, zombies walking the streets, and I have a kid, one of the kids that I work with now, his family's from Kensington and they managed to move out, but that's still the environment that he feels most comfortable in. He actually feels comfortable in that kind of weird chaos and danger. And it's weird for him to be surrounded by so-called normal people. I was like, man, you don't have to explain to me. I've been through weirdness of my own. I know exactly what you're going through. Uh, so kids figure it out, and sometimes the best thing you can do is just be there to support them.
Hmm, true that.
Yeah.
True that.
Yeah.
That's true. Wait, but a needle dispensary?
Yeah, oh
Really?
yeah, they yeah. I mean, it's a thing in some cities. I think maybe some cities in Europe tried it because they thought it would reduce crime and reduce the spread of disease, right? Because addicts are so desperate, they're going to do whatever they have to do to get their drugs, and if all they have is a dirty needle and 10 different addicts have to share the same needle, then 10 different addicts are going to end up with the same disease. So yeah, the mayor of Philadelphia, in conjunction with who knows what other agencies are involved, yeah, they set up these stations where people who are addicts can show up, get their drugs, and get their hygiene attended to. but I don't think it helps. I don't think it helps them too much, except for it keeps them from. I don't know. It's funny that they stick this these centers in like the worst places in Philly. They certainly aren't going to put them where the rich people live. They're going to put them where poor, struggling, working people are. And who wants their kids to have to walk past that on the way to the school bus in the morning? Who wants to walk past that on the way to their car to get to their job in the morning?
Not me.
No,
Not me.
no.
Yeah, same. So, I heard you were a musician, right?
Yeah,
Or
yeah. I'm the founder, a leader of a band called the Little Wretches. I think we have a new album. It went to mastering. It's not finished being mastering. We have the cover, but so the artwork's kind of done. So we should have a new album out next month. And but it's been weird for the last couple of years. I mostly perform solo, acoustic guitar, sing, and tell stories, and just do my thing. But the band, the Little Wretches, is a pretty powerful band. But we, ever since this COVID thing started, playing as a band is just not feasible. Um, so yeah, we were legends at various points. We had our proverbial chances to hit the big time, and the big time dodged us every time that happened. And then we had an album come out a couple of years ago that got a little bit of attention. Still is. We just put out a new lyric video to a song 2 days ago. We're not doing millions of units or anything like that. If I get 20,000 views on a YouTube video, I feel like, okay, 20,000 is, there are people that release something and they have 1.6 million the next day. But so I'm doing my own thing in my own time out here in obscurity. But there are people who will say that the Little Wretches are one of the best bands they ever heard. So look us up. Look us up, man. We're everywhere. You look
Wait,
up the Little Wretch.
You guys are called the Little Wretches, you said, right?
Yeah. WRETCHES, the Little Wretches, as in the poor, the reviled, the outcasts.
Okay, yeah. I will make sure to look that up as soon as this is over. You got it. You got it.
great, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah, has your band done any live concerts in the past, or not yet?
Oh yeah. We've done all kinds of live concerts. In fact, that's one of the things. We've been around for a long time, so there was a period when we were on the rise, where a few guys would come to our shows, and they would videotape every show that we did. And just in the last few days, the one guy's been posting concerts that we did in the '90s. That I didn't know he had this stuff, and I watch it and I'm like, oh my God, we were good, and we still are, but we're different. When it was a time where we had that kind of inner confidence, that we really expected to be knocking people out. We weren't surprised that people dug it, because we knew we had something. It's like when you show up to the party, you're bringing something to the table that nobody else brought. We know we're bringing something to the table. And so even now, when people discover it's not going to be everybody's cup of tea, but we have a body of work that speaks for itself.
Yeah, great, fabulous. It's great.
Yeah, we're from like maybe the coolest gig that I'd say we played. Well, we've played a couple of cool gigs, but when the Andy Warhol Museum opened, like everybody always associates Andy Warhol with New York, but in fact, he born and raised in Pittsburgh, and in fact, grew up in the same neighborhood as my dad. So we played when the Warhol opened. We were one of the bands that celebrated the opening of the Warhol Museum, and that was extremely cool to be associated with that. We've been around.
Yeah, you've been around. You guys been
We
around.
had a like we in the last couple of years, I've had a song. I've had two different songs that were #1 on the iTunes folk rock charts in South Africa, of all places. Weird stuff like that. Like, I've never been to South Africa. You mean to tell me, people in South Africa listen to the Little Wretches? Apparently so.
I mean, hey, you could become #1 in like weird places, especially places you've never been before. So it's like I take that as a win-win.
Yeah, well, that's
Yeah.
the weird thing about the whole COVID, like leveled the playing field. Let's face it, we're all just needles in the haystack. Like with your show. I don't know how connected you are with your audience. You don't know who's out there. But with technology, we're one click away from every other person in the world. Somebody who's out there looking for something cool, a couple of clicks, they stumble across it. It'll resonate with some, and others will click right past it. But yeah, I mean that's my favorite thing. As an indie artist, we don't need to be part of a big major record label or anything like that anymore. We put our stuff out there, and people who are seeking will find it.
Great.
That is a great way to think. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
indie
that's
all
a
day,
really
punk rock, indie all day.
all day.
All day, every day.
Yep.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I don't know.
Well, anyway,
Hmm.
that's all we have for this episode. It was great having you here, Robert.
Yeah, thanks. It was great talking to you guys. Hope
I
to
mean,
see you down the road somewhere.
Yeah, I
yeah,
agree.
same here. It was a great talk. Nice having you, Robert.
Oh,
Thank you.
yes, absolutely. And until next time, stay tuned for more.